So we're about to bring Jude on, and we're going to do some awesome deep dive into meditation, to peace of mind, and we're actually going to go through a meditation. Jude's going to take us through one, so make sure you stay tuned if you want that peace, if you want to experience a powerful meditation. Before that, let's talk about the sponsor message. If you're an entrepreneur, high achiever, you want to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, come talk to me. I would love to hear what your message is, what your mission is, whether it's being a guest on the 12-hour marathon or starting your own podcast. Come talk to me. I love talking to people about their purpose and their mission and helping them increase that impact. Chris at beyourgps.com, or find me on Facebook, facebook.com/th3burns, and message me there. Looking forward to talking to you. Next up is the iTunes review of the week. And this week it is by, I believe it's Thomas Rousseau Jr. I have listened to several of the podcasts, and I am continuously impressed with Chris's genuine enthusiasm for not just his guests, but for a life worth living. Amen. I highly recommend the Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self podcast and suggest you add this to your list of must listen to podcasts. Thanks so much, Tom. Appreciate you. If you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on the iTunes store and give us a review there. Make sure you subscribe while you're there so you can get all the latest updates and episodes and stay inspired, stay fired up, and becoming your greatest possible self. Thanks so much in advance. I love you. Keep showing up. Keep taking those steps forward. I'm going to introduce Jude in just a second here. Before that, though, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes. I'm sure a lot of this is going to be experiential that you actually go and apply into your life. And it's really good to take notes so you know what are the steps, what are the things that you can do that will actually make a difference. Maybe it shifts in your routine, different habits, different ways of looking at things, whatever it might be. You never know what one idea can really transform your life. So stay all the way through till the end of the episode of the interview, because Jude's going to bring some fire, some really great stuff for you. So make sure you stay tuned, and we'll introduce him and then bring him on the screen. Mr. Jude Johnson, absolutely powerhouse. Jude became interested in mindfulness while working as a therapist in an alternative school with at-risk youth. There he developed a passion for mindfulness and meditation because of the positive transformations he experienced and observed in these youth. Since 2011, he has been teaching regular mindfulness meditation classes and providing training to healthcare providers and businesses. Jude teaches Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction, MBSR, and trained at Omega with John Kabat-Zinn and Saki Santorelli. Jude helps people who are stressed, stuck, anxious, and depressed to find more joy and peace in life. If you avoid stress by compulsively checking your phone, consuming hours of media, or staying super busy, Jude will show you how mindfulness can help you take your life back. Jude believes that it takes courage to start a mindfulness practice, and that this simple act is one of self-compassion that can become a catalyst for real and lasting change. And Jude is with us today to absolutely help you and take some massive steps in the right direction. Jude, are you ready to rock the house?
I am ready to rock the house, Chris.
Thank you we're now
so
rocking
much for
the
having
house.
me on.
Yes, man, absolutely. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to dive into this topic. And specifically, let's start with the theme of the day, which is don't die with your music still inside of you. So, Jude, how does that concept, that principle show up for you in your life, man?
Wow, don't die without the music being expressed. I mean, that to me is like the biggest tragedy in existence for human beings, is when we don't live, then we're not really alive, right? And for me, it's like about capturing the moments that I have with the people that I love the most in my life and making sure that I tend to them. You know, just recently, my son turned 9 years old, and I was driving him into school on the Friday before his birthday, and I was listening to a song called Wild Wild Sun by Armin van Buuren. I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but it just talks about, like, you know, before you know it, you'll be crashing around like bandits. And then before you know it, your kids will be there crashing around like bandits. And this trip in life is so quick that if we don't slow down, it will just pass us right by. So that was powerful for me. I actually got emotional in the car. I actually did a video on my Facebook page all about this emotional interaction that I had. And my kids were like, why are you crying? And I said, well, first of all, because I am so happy. I am so grateful to have you guys here in my life, that we get to share this together. Now, the part that I didn't tell them, that I'm honestly sad too, because time is moving along and I can see that. So just the fact that we're living is the understanding that we are also grieving too, because everything is changing.
Yeah.
But that's why I think mindfulness is so powerful, because it helps us really have a time machine to capture what's really here while we're here.
I love it. I love it. That's so gold. And I feel how you were experiencing that moment when you just heard, hey, life and time, it's all in the present moment. And there's the gift of the present moment, there's the gratitude and the fulfillment, all the beauty of it. And there's almost this, it's like the gifts of life and death. Life is this beauty of everything that is, and then the death is, hey, it's not lasting forever. It's constantly changing. The time is passing us by. So it's really important to make the most use of it while we have it, because time waits for no man, right? And I see that you've really tapped into this supernatural state and ability and practice when you develop the muscle of it to really be in the present moment and capture that moment and experience it at an even deeper level in all of your cells and all of your presence and being.
Exactly. Inviting ourselves continually, even right now, to be here.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that I invite myself to be here is to notice how my body is feeling in this moment. Instead of just being up in my mind where we typically are with thinking and thinking. And thinking is wonderful. It helps us solve all kinds of problems. But if we get too attached to thinking, then we just become a thinking mind, and we forget about this broadening sense of awareness of the body that can teach us a lot too, because our body is taking in information all the time, and we're somewhat unconscious of some of these processes and some of the things that we can learn about ourselves by tapping into that presence.
Yeah, I just interviewed a guy earlier today, Bogdan, who was talking about taking the focus off of your head, where most people, they're thinking in their head, they're leading with their head, their posture is you're leaning over, and taking that presence and bringing it down your neck, down your chest, into your core, right below your belly button. That's like the center, the human being center. And when we put our focus there, we can bring a lot more peace and ease, instead of constantly thinking and being caught up in that kind of cat and mouse game, and the machinery of thinking and thoughts that just keep going and going and going. They never stop.
They
Never
never
stops.
stop. I mean, the average person has about 70,000 thoughts every single day, and we
Wow.
repeat the same kinds of thoughts over and over and over again. And so when we do that, life starts to get put on autopilot, right? We leave the present moment because the mind is off someplace else, even though your body's right here. So the invitation is, even for the listeners right now, instead of just cognitively thinking about what we're talking about here, see if you can sense and feel how it's hitting you in your body. What do
Wow.
you notice? Notice the heart, notice the belly, sense the aliveness right here in this moment. Be here in body and mind. That's presence.
Wow. So good. This is gold, Jude. So for everyone who's just getting introduced, I read some of your intro and your bio. I introduced you, and in your own words, I want you to share about who you are, what your clients come to you for, and what you stand for, man.
So I am first a licensed marriage and family therapist. I got into this field about 15 years ago, and I started out working in the hospitals, where people were acute, coming in for suicide attempts, psychotic breaks, bipolar disorder, that kind of thing, and started out with children, adolescents, and did that for a couple of years, but realized that, this was a necessary thing for people when they were really in danger. But I wanted to get more deep and work with people longer term. So got into therapy and began to work with families. And fast forward a little bit to being in this alternative school that you mentioned in the very beginning, South Providence and Waxhaw, working with these kids. I had finally come to a place in my career where I felt like I wasn't being effective. that I wasn't living my best life and I wasn't helping them along the path. And literally, I was ready to start a frozen yogurt company and just leave it all together. It's going to be organic though, of course. So I'll have some passion there, right? But I've left this dream behind. And then a friend of mine said, "Hey, have you ever heard of mindfulness based stress reduction created by John Kabat-Zinn?" She was working at Duke at the time. And I said, "No, I haven't." So I read the research, I took the class, I started practicing, and I developed a brand new passion for helping because I was able to relieve my own stress. And these kids started to have such positive changes through meditation and some gentle yoga in the morning. They started to connect to each other in different ways, which led me to work more with adults. I worked with domestic violence offenders, as well as many other populations have used mindfulness and meditation to help people with anxiety, to help people with depression, to help people with high levels of stress, people who overthink and can't seem to let go, and they stay up and they're just obsessing about everything. I help them notice that and become less involved with fixing and solving it all and letting it be.
Wow. That's so beautiful. I hear acceptance of the things that are going on. Just like, hey, I'm going to notice that and not feed it, not judge it, not try to stop it or stifle it or change it. It's just to notice it. And I'm sure we'll dive even more into some practical ways to approach the mindfulness and meditations that you do. And I also wanted to comment. It sounds like you've also worked with some people that would be tough cookies to crack and to work with and to be able to help and heal and give them hope, because like they're so overwhelmed, they're so caught up in their stories and their drama, the toxic behaviors, and of course the habitual chemistry that's going on in their body because of their upbringing, because of their environment. And a lot of times it's like, how do you even help someone like that who's so stuck in those patterns? And it sounds like you've really made a ton of progress with a lot of people to give them hope and give them an option and a way to get their choice back, to get their freedom and presence and peace back.
Exactly. It's like, we start getting messages very early on that we're not doing it the way other people want us to do it. And that's even within healthy families, right? You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. And then we start to adapt and we start to push some of those things down and like kind of put it in a little black bag. Oh, I need to put that part of myself away. And even though that might be an authentic part of you, other people are saying, oh, you don't want to do that. You don't like that. Or families often invalidate their children's feelings. Like they say, I'm angry. You're not angry. That shouldn't upset you. Let that go. And that's easy for us to say because we can see as an adult mind how it's maybe in the long term inconsequential. But if there's a pattern of invalidating feelings and not showing up for kids, then later on they believe that their emotions are really invalid and they're really not worthy because they're not being seen and adequately heard. So often what I'm helping people do is reparent themselves on some level. How can you begin to take care of that younger self that's right inside of you right here, right now, and realize that you weren't wrong? You were good. Is that nobody parents perfectly, myself included. I mess up, I screw up. But when I do, hopefully with this kind of training, I can acknowledge that and I can be transparent about those things to them because that gives them the message. It's okay for you to be authentic and transparent about the things that you fall down about. That's vulnerability. And it's easy to say to be vulnerable. And it's another thing to actually do it and to open up in that way. But that's where our strength comes from. We often don't feel strong in those moments, but that's where the goodness starts to shine and we start to see, well, gosh, maybe I could look at this differently. But when I'm all stuck in my head and thinking that I don't have value, then I get lost in that story. So what I'm helping them do is step outside of the story, observe the thoughts, and begin to show themselves a greater level of kindness and compassion. That's the reparenting.
Yeah, that's good. I recently read a book, what is it, Growth Mindset by Carol S. Dweck.
Yes.
And it's all about how, kids when the parents teach them based on achievement, based on, being successful, and they acknowledge them and reward them when they get good grades, then, the kids only want to do what they're good at. And so they start getting like closing their comfort zone and retracting. So they only keep doing what they're good at versus seeking out opportunities to grow and to fail forward and to learn and to expand themselves. And I think that's what it sounds like you're teaching as well, is to be resilient and to not get caught up just trying to fit in and like always make your parents proud. It's not about that. It's about, what are you learning? How are you growing? How are you moving forward?
Right. It's about the work that you do rather than the actual grade that you got on the test.
Yeah.
What was your effort? And that's when I read that book by Carol Dweck as well. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to stop telling my kid you're so smart. Because that was the one thing that she was talking about. They tell these kids, hey, you're so smart. And now we're going to give you this test that you're really not capable of passing. And then they feel stupid.
Yeah.
And then you tell the other group of kids, you worked so hard and that's why you did so well on this test. And then they take the test they're not supposed to do good at and they outperform the other group. Effort. It's about our efforts.
I love it. So good. So good. So before we dive any further into the mindfulness, meditation, all that good stuff, I want to go back into your journey, because I know that you have a powerful journey, especially with your dad, that caused you to be who you are today. So let's go back into the journey and tell us about how you got inspired to be a therapist and to support people and help them.
Yeah, well, my dad at the age of 3 was left in a garage with his little brother in the middle of winter, abandoned. DSS got involved, which was unheard of at that time. My dad is 75 years old today. Not actually today, but he's 75 years old. And that experience really shaped him. It was traumatizing. And then he was adopted into a family where there was also a lot of abuse. And so he really went through some trials, got into some substances, got into some trouble in his life. And then everything switched around for him. He saw a vision of Christ. He became saved, and that was the turnaround for him. So he became very passionate about that. And he would share his message. But I think the thing that really, really impacted me about his story is that he was so transparent with me about what he was feeling, what he was thinking. He would allow his emotions to come to the surface. So from a very young age, I was taught that it was okay to express what you really felt, because he felt for so long that what he was feeling was not okay to share. And so I was like, this is powerful. And I want to get involved in helping people heal from these things, because they have lifelong consequences where people start to feel that, they don't feel comfortable in groups of people. They don't feel safe around other people because they don't know whether they can trust their intentions. So many people come to me and they say, I don't trust anybody. I don't even think they trust themselves, right? Yeah. And it's like they pull away from everybody, and then they become more isolated. And when we get isolated, we feel like that we're all alone, and then we get depressed and we get hopeless and we pull away from people. So I love to help people who are dealing with depression and trauma kind of begin to come out of that and begin to see things differently.
Wow, that's amazing. And I just acknowledge you for being their support when it must be so difficult for them to open up. Even though you have these tools and these resources, it still has to be their choice, right? And I'm sure you've come across people who they were put in the situation, but they still weren't willing to open up. They still weren't willing to do the work or to change or to allow for a different possibility or perspective. So, I'm sure you've always just done your best with whatever you had at the time and made the difference that you could too.
Exactly. And some people have come to therapy and they're just simply not ready, and then I've had other people that, they get there and it's just all pouring out and they can't wait to get it all out. Yeah. And I'll have to say, okay, let's slow down a little bit, because you need to focus in on what are some actual ground level skills that you can learn today. They're going to help you for the next week until I see you again. And all of this expression is wonderful and great, but we have to have some perspective with it too. Otherwise, it kind of just goes like with the obsessive thinking. Then I just one problem after another problem after another problem.
Yeah. It's like what actually changes, if someone's just constantly talking, then it could even be reinforcing what they have been doing. Because a lot of people, if their habit is to be like in drama mode, then that's what they'll do. And even if it's going to therapy, they're still in drama mode unless we can give them, powerful exercises to get themselves out of that. So let's dive into that. What are some practical things that we can be doing or noticing or paying attention to, changing to get our power back and our choices back?
Well, the very first thing that I teach people is, of course, what mindfulness is. And then I teach them exactly how to apply that to their life. So maybe I'll just explain a little bit about exactly what mindfulness is and a practical skill that everyone who is listening can practice, even now as I'm talking about it. So mindfulness is being present in the moment and yet not being swept away and overwhelmed by all of your thoughts. And the way we do that is not judging what comes up, and having a kind and friendly attention towards ourselves. That is the practice in a nutshell. And so when a judgment comes up, because it will, or a negative event comes up in the mind and image, we acknowledge it, we name it. So you could say planning thought, worried thought, angry thought. Acknowledging things like this has been proven through research to lower our anxiety level, lower our negative emotion, because we're becoming the observer. So just imagine that your thoughts and your emotions for a moment are like waves in the ocean. The waves don't ever stop. The thoughts don't stop. So instead of trying to control the thoughts or the waves, we take a step back. We pop our head outside of the wave and we acknowledge and we see this is what it is objectively. So if we can't do that, then you might just want to self-soothe. You might want to do something to distract for a little while until you can come back to this mindfulness activity. But we have to get the nervous system to come down. So just imagine for a moment that, my fist is a brain and a threat comes in. And when that threat comes in, what happens is we flip our lids. And what that means is up to 80% of the blood flow is shunted away from the frontal lobe, which is where you kind of make rational choices and decisions. You take everything into account and make a wise choice. But when you're under stress, this little part of your brain called your amygdala is running the show. And it's saying, you're in danger. You got to fight. You got to run away. And today we're having reactions like that to text messages and emails and things that are actually not life-threatening. And so how can we calm that down is this stop mindfulness activity. So all you need to do is the first step is to stop and do nothing, pause and recognize what is going on in this moment. The next step is to take deep conscious breath. So even right now, you can take a deep breath in and let it go softly, slowly, watching the body let go of the breath. Taking a couple more in, deep breath in. Let it go softly, slowly, out of the body. One more time, deeply in. Letting go slowly. What this does is sends a message to your brain that you're not in a fight-flight response. There is no tiger, there is no bear, your life is not in danger. You are okay in this moment. You can handle this, which gives us the capacity then to just return the breath to normal and begin to observe this body. What is this body feeling in this moment? Warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure, numbness, non-feeling. Whatever it is, the intention is to open to that experience and to be a curious, kind observer. What do I notice? I'm also going to begin to observe my thoughts. What are they? I'm going to acknowledge them, like I said earlier. I'm going to name what they are: planning, worrying, angry thought. And then I'm also going to come back again to the sensations in the body. And then after I'm done observing for a bit, then I can proceed in this present moment with the next task at hand. Whether it's an email, a telephone call, whether it's walking out to my car, I'm going to try to be so present in that moment. Not in the future, not in the past, in the now. So what I just explained basically is a mini meditation. So stop, you could do in as little as 30 seconds. Stop, take deep breaths, observe with kind, curious attention what's happening in this moment, and then proceed with as much presence as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. If you will practice this 5 or 6 times a day for just 30 seconds, that's only 3 minutes of your life, you will start to string together more moments of being present in the moment.
I love it. So the acronym again is S for stop, T for take deep breaths, O for observe everything that you can, and P for proceed in the present moment. Is that what it is?
That is correct.
Awesome. And I was talking to you on the pre-call, and I mentioned, like, if people just took 3 minutes a couple times a day to reset themselves, like, it would transform their whole life. And I love how you made it even better. You said 30 seconds. That's all you need. Like, you could do it even faster. And I think that's what people want, is they want the comfort, the ease, the quickness. And it's about remembering to do it. And I'm curious, what is your recommendation about really building this muscle to integrate this into their lives?
So first recommendation is just start with the stop activity several times a day so that it doesn't feel like it's taking so much maybe out of your already busy or packed schedule. Yeah. But one of the most helpful things that you can do is to develop a meditation practice. Even 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, whatever you can commit to will make a huge difference. So the most important thing is pick a time. When are you going to meditate? Because if you don't have a time to meditate, if you don't schedule a time, if you don't build it into your day, the day will get away from you and you will not meditate.
Yep.
Where are you going to meditate? Decide where. If you don't have a clear plan of when and where you're going to do it, chances are you're not going to do it. So picking the time, picking the place, and then another recommendation is pick the same place and maybe have some props, maybe a blanket, a pillow, a meditation cushion, whatever you want, and make that space nice around you. And these different things, these different rituals that you could get in, like fluffing your pillow or putting on a blanket or whatever your process is, if you do that every time, it's just like getting ready to go to sleep. You brush your teeth, you wash your face, you get your PJs on, and all this is cueing you in that it's time to come into sleep. These little micro behaviors are cueing you in that it's time to settle into meditation. And so you show up to meditate, most commonly, breath, body. You can do guided, unguided. Generally, for beginners, it's best to have a guide at first, some simple instructions, much like I'm giving right now. People, like, they'll sit down to meditate and they're like, okay, all right, here we go. Clearing my mind of everything. Lots of luck. Okay, I'm not peaceful yet. Oh, this is kind of boring. This is kind of dull. I'm not having these wonderful experiences that other people have talked about. And that's because you're looking outside of yourself instead of looking for what you are experiencing. And so just starting with a guide, starting small, not having some lofty goal that you're going to meditate an hour every day. I mean, hey, great. If you do, wonderful. But many times we set up these large and lofty goals that we're not willing to follow through with. Yeah. So if you set 5 minutes and you meditate for 15, then score. You're just going above and beyond.
Yeah, this is good. I love it, man. And I love how you said pick a time, right? That's number one, is when are you going to do it? If it's not in the schedule, for me, I live and die by my calendar, my schedule. If it's not on there, it's practically non-existent, And then the where is super powerful, because you'll condition your mind to remember every time I'm in this place, every time I'm on this pillow, every time, I use these essential oils, whatever it might be, you condition yourself to drop into that place of relaxation even faster, and your mind's like, oh, I know this spot. This is the meditation spot. This is where I go to just be. Awesome.
Exactly. Familiarity. We're trying to become more familiar with ourselves, which that's one of the ways that we're checking out, is through busyness. Yeah. We're checking out through obsessive thinking. And we're checking out through sometimes just seeking pleasure, right? Seeking more of it to try to avoid some of the things that we don't want to deal with, which is why when you stop to meditate, people don't like to stay there very long, because they're like, ooh, I don't kind of like what's coming up here. I don't like these thoughts, or I don't like these feelings, or this is too dull. Show me something better.
Yeah.
Because we've become so accustomed to everything needs to be better than it is in this moment. And what would it be like if this moment, actually now, could be enough?
I love that. I love how you said a lot of people are in action all the time. They're busy because they want to get somewhere. They want to achieve something. They want the gratification and the success and the fulfillment of whatever that is. They want to go out and party. They want to go have a great conversation with friends. They don't want to just be there in the moment because it's not enough. They have this perpetual not enough feeling and like a hole inside of themselves. And when they sit still, they can start to feel that they've been running from something, avoiding it, suppressing the thoughts or the emotions or whatever it might be, and those start to come up. They start to remember those things.
Exactly. And those stories, those 70,000 thoughts that people have that become habitual, if we fail at something, right? We're striving for success in many different areas of our life, financial, relational, success, when things don't go our way, often what occurs is a story about how we're not good enough, that you failed, that you're bad in some way, that you'll never achieve the things that you want to. And I'm sure many guests here on your show have probably said, well, failure is part of success.
Yep.
And, falling down is normal. Everybody falls down. Staying down is failure.
Yeah.
Whenever you decide to get back up, that is the success. It's the coming back into the present moment and realizing that your value does not come from what you do, how much you have, but your value really comes from being alive in this moment, the gift of life right here, right now, this breath. If you knew that you only had a year to live, who would you call? What would you do? What if you only had a month? What if you only had a day? What would matter then? Right? We have to bring it back down. And I know that sounds morbid, right? But if we think about death, if we consider that this is such a short trip, then hopefully that can give us some motivation to take care of ourselves in this moment and to take care of those around us so that we can really live a more fulfilled and happy life.
It'll give us perspective and be able to see what is really valuable, what is really important. Are the things that I'm spending my time and energy and thoughts thinking about and obsessing about, is it really, at the end of the day, is it going to make a difference? And I think a lot of people get caught up in somebody else's dream or vision of life and what they say they're supposed to be doing, and they never live for themselves. So it's super important. And I know, Jude, you had a meditation that you wanted to take us through today. I'm happy to do that now. If you think it'd be a great time, or if you think there's more to cover before we do that, let us know.
No, I think that this is a perfect segue because we've talked about mindfulness, we've talked about meditation, and probably people are wondering, well, what is this all about if they don't have experience? So I actually have a little singing bowl here.
Awesome.
And so wherever you are listening, whenever you're listening to this, just take a position that is comfortable, alert, and awake. You can keep the eyes open or closed, whatever you prefer, or just soften the gaze if you keep them open. Everything that I say is merely a suggestion. If it doesn't fit for you, disregard, okay? So we'll begin by just listening to the sound of the bell, and this is just going to be about 5 minutes to get you to have a taste of what meditation is all about. So I'm going to ring the bell, and you can just listen to it as it goes into silence. And just begin by noticing sounds. Sound of my voice, sounds that are close by, sounds that are further away. Notice how you don't have to go out and capture sounds. They're just naturally known through your awareness, moment to moment. Just listening. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just listening. Listening carefully, closely. Not having to make sense out of anything. No need to judge. Just witness sounds appear and disappear moment to moment. With this same careful listening, you're invited to shift your awareness now to the body. Notice where your body is making contact with the surface beneath you. Notice gravity act on the body, holding you here. See if you can allow the body to be soft and at ease without forcing. Allowing any tightness or tension that remains just to float in your awareness with nothing to do about it. Letting the body be just as it is. Allowing the mind to be as it is. Observing your experience. Seeing if you can lay out a welcome mat for all of your experiences. Reminding yourself that you don't have to experience anything in particular. You're just noticing this moment as it is. You're invited now to bring to mind your most sincere intention, aspiration for life. What matters to you? To be happy, peaceful, free, healthy. Whisper this intention to yourself in your mind. May I be, may I feel, and fill in the blank or blanks that make sense for you. If nothing arises, there's no need to judge. It will emerge in its own timing. But we can softly let these intentions go and draw awareness to the breath. Where can you sense and feel the breath most easily? Nostrils, back of the throat, the chest, the belly. Just listen to and follow this breath. There's no need to think about breathing. You've been doing it your whole life. You're just witnessing the breath. Is it possible to sense the very beginning of the in-breath? Are you able to notice the very beginning of the out-breath? Just watch this breath flow in and out. You're invited now to shift your awareness back to listening as I offer a poem by Kaveri Patel entitled Dear You. Dear you, you who always have so many things to do, so many places to be, your mind spinning like fan blades at high speed, each moment always a blur because you're never still. I know you're tired. I also know it's not your fault. The constant brain buzz is like a swarm of bees threatening to sting if you close your eyes. You've forgotten something again. You need to prepare for that or else. You should have done that differently. What if you closed your eyes? Would the world fall apart without you? Or would your mind become the open sky, flock of thoughts flying across the sunrise as you just watched and smiled? I'm going to ring the bell one more time. And as the bell comes to a close, you can give yourself the gift of coming out of the meditation softly and gently.
That was beautiful, man. It's incredible.
Wonderful, wonderful.
What is your favorite part about doing that?
That while I'm providing a guided meditation, I'm meditating. And if I can settle myself down, then I can feel more stillness, and then I can gauge it with other people in a room when I'm providing a guided meditation. I can tell when I'm more present or when I'm more distracted. And so when I really am, my favorite part about it is seeing people's expressions on their faces after they were still for a little bit and they feel that benefit. And so many people will say, "Oh, thank you so much." And what I'll really say is, I didn't do anything. I gave you a guide. I pointed you in a direction. And the reason you experienced a benefit was because you had a sense of willingness to be present. And so what I love about it is that anyone can really do this. Anyone can be present and pay attention to at least one breath. And I will say, though, is that if you did have a peaceful experience, there are plenty of people out there that may be listening to this that did not. Their thoughts may have sped up. They weren't able to really focus. They felt like they were too distracted. It wasn't what they thought it should be. And what I'll say about that is that may be the very best meditation, because we're going through the weeds. We're developing new pathways through this thing called meditation.
Wow, that's incredible. I think it's so astonishing how everyone has a different experience and a different meaning and a different feel for it, and how they relate to it. And I think it's incredible that you also say wherever they're at is perfect. It's perfect where you're at. Whatever you experience, whatever level of peace, great. Whatever level of, upset or frustration or anything that comes up, it's totally cool. That's a great place to be, because you're building these new pathways, the new muscle that you may not have experienced before.
Exactly. And I will mention that, there can be some risk to a meditation practice. And one of them is if a person has a severe traumatic history that they haven't dealt with, or some serious psychiatric issue that they haven't got any treatment for. I think everyone can eventually benefit from meditation or some form of it, some form of mindfulness in their daily life, but that sitting and being still may be too much for somebody with severe post-traumatic stress at first. Now, for other people with severe PTSD, it may work wonders for them. And so, but the key is that, remember I said earlier, if your brain gets activated and you're in that stress response, you can't force yourself into becoming relaxed. So if you can't settle yourself down through meditation, don't push harder, because then you're going to have a boomerang effect. And then you're going to feel worse about yourself, that I'm failing at this thing called meditation that science says is so wonderful and I fail at it. What's wrong with me? And what I would say is nothing. We just have to figure out steps and processes that can get you to the place to where you do what works for you. When I teach meditation classes, I say, the whole point of this is for you to develop a practice that fits your life, that's nourishing for you, that you learn these different skills and learn to look at things from different viewpoints. You get to decide what works for you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. This is so powerful. So I think the two big things that I'm taking away for sure is the stop technique, and also just to have that meditation time and place, and make sure we're consistent with that. And I think that those two big things alone would really transform people's peace and their happiness and their fulfillment and ability to bounce back and be resilient when they get knocked off track. I think one of the biggest images that comes to mind when people are not peaceful and present is someone cuts them off on the road and they're just like the most angry, fuming person ever. And now, like, when people do funny things on the road, like, I've conditioned myself to just be like, hey, I love you. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah. Hey, isn't that interesting? They must be in a big hurry. Maybe there's an emergency going on. Yeah. Maybe, hey, maybe they're about to have some kind of accident you don't know about, right? I mean, they may be on their way somewhere else, and we make all kinds of assumptions about how they're being a jerk. But if we have a choice what to believe because we don't know, why not believe something good?
Yeah. I love it. I love it. That's amazing. So, Jude, is there anything else that is like a go-to technique or a practice for you, or something that you really encourage your clients or the people who you're working with? Anything else you'd really recommend as a beneficial approach?
Yes, intention. And I did this in the meditation, right? Bring up what your most sincere intention, what matters to you. And the first time you ask yourself, it might not be the deepest thing. Yeah. Think about like a rock and dropping it down into a well that it goes deeper and deeper. And as you keep asking yourself this question, you might find deeper intentions and aspirations for your life. And when you get in touch with what you really want to aspire towards, it's like setting a compass. What direction do I want to go? And what would it be like if I remind myself as often as possible what my intentions are? So maybe when I walk through a door, maybe when I transition from one activity to another, I can remind myself, this is my intention. Every time I meditate, this is my intention.
Incredible. And what you're sharing today is so powerful. I'm super grateful that you're on the podcast and you're sharing it with our audience. And I know that you're also doing some other things to get the message out and impact more people. Can you share about those?
Yeah, I have a podcast, the A Keen Mind podcast, where I'll give tips on mindfulness and meditation, much like I'm sharing right here. And every episode has a guided meditation. Wow. I also teach mindfulness based stress reduction, which is this 8-week meditation class that was developed by Kabat-Zinn. And I teach that right here in Charlotte. I haven't made any official plans yet, but over the summer, I may end up teaching an online version of that MBSR class. So stay tuned on that front.
Dude, you gotta do it, man. You gotta give people access to this who may not be in Charlotte, because it's gold, and people definitely need it. There's so many people who are stressed out, especially entrepreneurs. I have so many people who are on here. They're influencers, entrepreneurs, got this empire that they're out to build, and in the process, if they are not taking care of their well-being and being present in the moment and noticing what's happening, they can just get caught up, and next thing they know, it's 10 years later. The next thing they know, they have all these health challenges because they didn't manage their state and their energy effectively.
Absolutely. So I guess if I could add one more thing for those entrepreneurs out there who are working hard and they're pushing hard, sometimes non-doing can help you become more creative. So when I run into a wall, which I think we all do at times, you expend so much energy and then you run into this wall. So if I will give myself 5-10 minutes, whatever it could be, to stop and be still, maybe it's a walking meditation, and maybe it's a little yoga, maybe it's a sitting meditation, whatever you find nourishing to you, do something that you think is good for your body, not for your business, which ultimately will be great for your business because you need your body and mind operating as best they can. And that will allow for some more mental space for you to be creative again.
What would you say are some of the signs where people are not in alignment or in harmony with their body and what their body wants?
When they're not in harmony with what their body wants, when they're feeling incongruent, is probably when their body is tense and it's tight. and it feels constricted, and probably their thinking feels constricted. It's probably more focused in on negativity. They probably have some tunnel vision going on about the problems that are going on, which is why it's so helpful for us to slow down, because when we're relaxed, we can see things so much more clearly.
Yeah. So you mentioned about the potentially doing the yogurt, the organic yogurt earlier,
Yes.
right? What are you most proud of about your choices to stay on this path in this direction, to keep investing in meditation and the difference that you're making for people? What are you most proud of?
I am most proud of the stories that people have told me about the personal changes that they have made.
Mm.
Um, one person in particular that I worked with years ago, and she shared this story publicly. I won't share her name, but it's out there. But when she first started coming to see me, she was so depressed and had a plan to end her life much later on. I mean, like, she had this whole thought out plan and just couldn't see any use, but she wanted to have all her affairs in order so that she would cause the least amount of trouble on other people. And, I told her in that very first session, I said, if you don't remember anything I tell you, remember to be kind to yourself. And for her, that stuck. She began to practice more mindfulness and meditation. She learned how to work with all these things to the place to where she was no longer depressed. She was happy. She's living her life. She's pursuing the things that she wants to. And for me to experience that and witness that within someone else, to me, it is a gift.
It's beautiful. What impact would you say learning and studying meditation has had on your family?
Well, that's a great question. For my kids, I try to make sure that they see me meditate.
Yeah.
And it's not for very long, but in the morning, if I can get us all ready, because it's me getting them on the bus in the morning. My wife gets them whenever they're getting off the bus. I will sit on the little love seat in the formal living room and just sit there, and I'll meditate. And so they like to come and sit with me every once in a while and meditate with me. I went to the park with my youngest son, Henry, who's just 5, and he says, "Hey, look, Dad, this is a great place to meditate right over here." I was like, "You gotta be kidding me, man. You gotta be kidding me." So we sat on the bench. He was like, "Listen to the sounds, hear the water. We're in the park. How beautiful." And I'm like, "Yes, this is great." I mean, we sat down probably for 1 minute in stillness. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. But what I remember, and to any parent out there listening, do not try to teach your children to meditate. Show them that you meditate.
Yeah.
You show them that you do it and you practice it. Don't talk about it. Don't read about it. Just do it. If you have a choice between meditation or reading about it and learning more about it, just meditate.
Wow, that's powerful. It's be the example. It's what do they say? Kids will model what you do, not what you say.
Right. It's so true. Because I had tried before. I was like, yeah, but maybe I can be convincing. No, they just need to see me doing it.
Yeah. And why not have that activity that you can now have in common too? I think a lot of parents are always seeking and searching for what can we do together as a family, and if there's a common activity that brings more peace and well-being and happiness to everyone and could do that together, that's a total win-win.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is amazing. So I want to check in. Is there any final pieces of wisdom or things about mindfulness that you think are really important for our audience to get and to understand because of their time with us today?
I recently listened to Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, and one thing that he talked about that was so powerful was follow your bliss.
Yeah.
Which basically means follow your passion, live your life, pursue the things that matter to you, that are important to you, so that your life becomes a meditation. John Kabat-Zinn says, the real meditation is how you live your life. so that when you get off the cushion, when you are done meditating, that the quality of attention and awareness of being non-judgmental, of being kind and friendly to yourself, just like you would a dear friend, gets carried into how you're living your life, so that you can connect more to other people and that you can provide value to others because you're providing it to yourself. We have to care properly for ourselves, which is why I'm passionate about helping helpers, doctors, therapists, people who have compassion fatigue. They see all this suffering and trauma, and if they're not taking care of themselves, they can't be present. So making that larger impact by taking care of ourselves first.
That's so good. And I also wanted to circle back around to the authentic self, right? Because I know that's a part that we wanted to cover in this. How does the meditation relate to being your true self, your authentic self?
Yeah, I think that the authentic self is the awareness, the one who is watching. So see if you can just be the awareness and realize that you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, that those are the passing weather patterns, if you will. They're the clouds in the sky that are coming and going, and you're just sitting back watching. You're the sky. Just like the example earlier where the ocean is you, and the waves are the thoughts and the experiences. Broaden that sense. Realize that, yes, these waves are here, these thoughts, these emotions are here, but they're not who I am. That's the authentic self, the awareness. And if you think about it, your awareness really hasn't changed through time. Think about yourself being a young kid, the awareness, right? We just develop all these habits to change as we mature. Of course, things change, but your awareness is a constant.
Wow, that was beautiful. And it's like that place of remembering that we've always had the awareness. And if we can keep coming back to the pure observer, the pure just the witness of what is going on, the emotions, the thoughts, the sensations, that is the truest, most authentic creator self.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gold.
Yeah,
Gold.
Just being.
Yes. Just being. I love it, Jude. So this is gold, and I know our audience wants to stay connected with you. They want to find out more about your podcast and how they can take the next steps. How can they do that, man?
They can find me at www.akeenmind.com. And that's probably the best place to connect with me. There's a link to the podcast right there that you can follow my episodes. Guided meditation in everyone, tips on how you can reduce your stress in everyday life.
So applicable for the entrepreneurs, the world changers, and people who are building businesses and impacting more people, being their greatest possible self, who are tuning in. Everyone listening or watching, definitely stay connected with Jude. Jude, I love your voice. It's just so peaceful and so smooth, man. It's awesome, and I love what you're doing, what you're teaching. If you're watching or listening right now, go to akeenmind.com. That's AKEENMIND.com, akeenmind.com. And Jude, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your light, man.
Chris, thank you so much for having me on this show. And I love your interview style. Asking me lots of questions is helping to pull out kind of the skill and the understanding that I have of mindfulness. I so enjoy being with you here today.
Yes, dude, we'll have to do it again. Like this is just the beginning for you. I see you getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and just making a big impact in the world. So keep sharing the message, the content, keep doing your podcast, keep asking people to help you out and support you getting this message out there, because it's absolutely worthy and powerful. And the relationships, I think, for you are going to be such a big thing that make the difference, that help you make a bigger impact.
For sure.
Awesome, man. Have a great day. We'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah, you too. Take care.